In 2017 and when US President Donald Trump approved a license for Ukraine to buy arms and approved the export of weapons worth $47 million, observers watching Russia-Europe warned that the move could put Russia's President Vladimir Putin on the warpath in the region. It was said that decision to arm Ukraine is bound to make a conflict that is mostly frozen into a more deadly one, and it complicates any reasonable chance of a diplomatic resolution. Yet, the US continued with the arms sale to Ukraine even after Trump lost the presidential election to Joe Biden. The military aid policy continued. The warnings came true as Putin ordered invasion of Ukraine on February 24. Now, Ukraine needs more arms to save itself from the Russian invasion. The supply of weapons to Ukraine is coming from other channels as well, but the US has to be the principal export source within the NATO. Just 2 days after Russia invaded Ukraine, Joe Biden ordered the release of additional weapons worth $350 million to the East European country through the Foreign Assistance Act. This was the third tranche of weapons shipment authorization by the US to Ukraine. Earlier, the US drew from its weapons stock to supply Ukraine in the fall September to November of 2021 and December. Dated February 6, it was said 8 US cargo airplanes landed in Kyiv since January 22 after Joe Biden approved $200 million in new military aid for Ukraine. The supply of weapons not only continued but did so at an increased pace. Because war is good business for the defense contractors and manufacturers. And the US is the world's largest defense contractor and arms exporter. Russia is the second biggest arms exporter, but with a volume roughly 1/3 of the US. It suits the arms manufacturing companies of the US that Ukraine is provided with lethal military aid apparently to keep Russia off its border. But almost every geostrategic thinker warned that continued arming of Ukraine would invite a war from Putin's Russia. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute (SIPRI), the US is home to 5 of the world's 10 largest defense contractors. Lockheed Martin is by far the largest in the field. The company was contracted in 2018 after Trump's move to provide Ukraine with Javelin anti-tank missiles. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and his thrust on Ukrainian nationalism might have contributed to expedited defense deals with the US and sharper pricking of already agitated Putin. But a military conflict is what drives the economy of arms manufacturing. To the utmost shock for many edging to teach Putin a lesson, Biden had refused to commit the US to a direct fight with Russia. He has maintained that America's role is to supply weapons to Ukraine. Biden did not change his stance even when he was asked about Russia's nuclear war threat. Weapons are what the US wants its companies and NATO allies to ship to Ukraine as it puts up a fight against Russia. Putin left little to doubt that a Russian invasion was only a matter of time. Even the NATO members knew this. Almost a month before the invasion, on January 26, hundreds of thousands of Russian troops were ready to march into Ukraine. What did the UK, the best-known ally, did? They committed shipping about 2,000 main battle tank next-generation light anti-tank weapons (MBT and LAWS) at an undisclosed cost. These anti-tank weapons are manufactured by Saab, a British-Swedish project. The US is not the only one to gain as Russia-Ukraine war intensifies and prolongs. Germany, Italy, Turkey and others are also supplying weapons and defense systems that their state-backed or private companies specialize in manufacturing. In Ukraine, the US is leading the competition to sell arms, to create deterrence to Russia, but allegedly knowing that more arms in the neighborhood would only push Putin towards warpath. NATO's expansion has been an irritant for Russia, and Putin in particular, for long. Putin has gone on record describing it as a threat to the existence of Russia. This was seen in the case of Georgia in 2008 before the Ukraine situation went out of hand. Before the 2008 Georgia-Russia war, US President George W. Bush supplied weapons worth millions of dollars to Georgia while Putin warned of retaliation. The Bush administration apparently convinced Georgia that NATO would fight its war if Russia went for a military offensive. Like Ukraine, Georgia is not a NATO member. Shipment of weaponry emboldened Georgia's President Mikhail Saakashvili to launch a military operation against the region under the control of secessionists. It was a Ukraine-like situation. Every war costs dear to the countries involved. Ukraine is being battered and it would take some time to reconstruct the war-raged regions of the country. Reconstruction is mostly funded through low-interest loans and aids from the creditor to the debtor. If Afghanistan is an indicator, reconstruction benefits the companies of the benefactor country. According to a report by the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction (SIGAR) created by the American Congress to focus solely on the Afghanistan mission and its reconstruction issues, the entire reconstruction package was worth $145 billion over 20 years. This was not the money given to Afghanistan but mostly to American companies that were involved in the reconstruction business. Ukraine is likely to see a similar reconstruction package and plan from the US and NATO members of Europe. Secondly, the Ukraine war will definitely leave Russia economically weakened not simply as a cost of a military operation but also due to economic sanctions that the US-led West has imposed on the country. Its commerce and banking is severely hit by the sanctions. A weakened Russia is advantage America. The comparative weakness of Russia, even with a gain in some territorial depths in Ukraine, is bound to give the US greater superiority against its arch-rival in NATO-dominated Russian surroundings. Gaining the upper hand in Eastern Europe after the rattled retreat from Afghanistan, another shadow battlefront with Russia could assuage its wounded pride. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.